So let's start with the next chapter, that is Java exceptions. What are the various Java exceptions that is used? Yes, that is used in the programming language. So a new exception or an exception is a problem that arises during the execution. That means a system holds down or it's break down whenever there is an exception that arises. So it is a problem that arises during the execution of the problem. An exception can occur for many of the following reasons, many of the different reasons. That includes a user that have entered invalid data. This is one of the main reasons, that users have entered maybe the invalid data. Then a file that needs to be opened cannot be found. So first is I'm giving the input that is not correct. Then a file that needs to be opened cannot be found. Then a network that have been lost. A network that can be lost, so there's a network connection that have been lost in the middle of the communication, or the JVM that has run out of the memory. Some of these exceptions are caused by user error, other by the programmer's errors, other by the physical resources that have failed in some manner. So this depends on the error to error. Whatever the error that they have agreed, so this error will be depends on the exception. So one is either the input data or invalid data. Then next is file cannot be opened, or we use the file that cannot be opened. The next one is a network connection. Network connection is any of the reason, that may be a low bandwidth, that may be a system problem, anything that is available. Next one is what are the various types of exception that is used. So to understand how the exception handling works in the Java, other by the programmer's error, other by the physical resources that have failed in some manners. So these are used to understand there are three categories of the exception that is available. So first is checked exceptions. Checked exception in the sense, it is an exception that is typically a user error or a problem that cannot be foreseen by the programmer. For example, if a file is opened but the file cannot be found, the same file cannot be found, that is known as the checked exception. Then runtime that could not be avoided or could have been avoided by the programmer, and this is used to check exception runtime are ignored at the time of the compilation. Then errors, these are not the exception at all, but problem that arises or that rise beyond the control of the users or the programmer, that is known as errors. So errors are typically ignored in your code because you can rarely do anything about an error. For example, if an stack over occurs, an error arises. So if the stack overflows, but what is our target, that is arrive, so that is used by or they are ignored at the time of the compilation. Next is the hierarchy of the exception. This is one of the hierarchy. One is a throwable, then there is an error or there is an exception. After the exception, there are two categories: input-output exception and the runtime exception. Exception is also of the two categories: input-output or the runtime exception. So these are the various built-in exceptions that is used. There are multiple several exception classes that is inside the standard package, that is the Java language, and the most general of these languages that is available, that are the subclasses of the standard type runtime exception. And since Java language is implicitly imported to all the Java programs, so most of the exception that is derived from runtime are automatically available. So one is the arithmetic exception that is used or that is caused by the arithmetic error, such as divide by the zero. So if I divide the zero, that gives the infinity, that is one of the errors. Then array index out of the bound exception. This is the index that is out of the bound. Then array store exception. This is the assignment into an array element or of an incompatible type. Then class cast exception, that is invalid cast. Illegal argument exception, that is used to invoke any method, invoke any criteria. Then state exception, thread state exception, out of bound exception, array size exception. We are declaring the array as a 10 and we are giving the values as a 11, that is the array out of the array size exception. Then there is a null pointer exception, invalid use of the null reference. Then format exception or the number format exception, that is the invalid conversion of a string into a number format. Then there's a security exception that attempts to violate a security. This is used. Then string index out of bounds. Then unsupported operation exception that is used, or that then what is an unsupported exception when operation was performed. The next is a list of the Java checked exception that is defined in the Java.language. This is the class not found exception, class not found. This is not supported exception. Then illegal access exception, so access to a class is denied. Then instantaneous exception, that is attempt to create an object of an abstract class or interface. Then interrupted exception, so one thread has been interrupted by another thread, that is interrupted. Then no such field exception, that is a field request or the requested field does not exist, so no such method. A requested method